Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie Bullet Train. Bullet Train was originally a book written by Kotaro Osaka, but this movie is directed by David Leitch. Leitch's most notable films are Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, and Hobbs and Shaw. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, I thought it looked intense and interesting, and the whole slew of A-list actors made me want to go check it out. The synopsis is as follows. Ladybug is an unlucky assassin who's determined to do his job peacefully after one too many gigs has gone off the rails. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things to make a movie great. 1. The plot. The best way I can describe this movie is a love child between Murder on the Orient Express and Buried, with influences of Deadpool 2, if that child snorted cocaine. It's true that the initial plot follows Brad Pitt, aka Ladybug, as his handler sends him on a mission to retrieve a briefcase off of a train. Bad luck in the form of people just straight up dying for random reasons seems to follow Ladybug wherever he goes. So he's chosen a peaceful route. He just wants to do snatch and grabs. He doesn't want there to be any violence, any death. But obviously that's not what happens. As soon as Brad Pitt's character gets on the train, a whole slew of violence and mystery and action and ridiculousness follows. Instead of there being just one plot that you're able to follow pretty well and this movie flushes out pretty well, you are then given a sensory overload of probably 6 different plots. Just bam, 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 bam. Character, flashback, flashback, flashback. And it is super jarring. If you have a quick mind and you're paying attention to all of the small and subtle details, then you can follow it. But the way this movie is set up is basically a classic whodunit and follows all these different subplots of characters to try to find out why they're on this train. This is a creative choice and it is a very specific kind of movie, but in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of movies that do this because a lot of the things that I appreciate about well-made movies fall through the cracks with movies like this. And ultimately, at the end of the film, there are a couple big reveals that just aren't that big to me. They were not that impressive. For those art students that always criticize me in the comments, I get that the fast-paced nature of this movie is similar to your mind being on a bullet train. It's a metaphor. And as far as these movies go, it held together pretty decently by the end of the film. One of the things I really did like about the plot is that there was a lot of subtlety. I really love subtlety in a film, and this one did a good job of including stuff like that, but it wasn't enough to save the plot overall. So plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Nope, 0%. Moving on. This movie is chock full of profanity, blood, and gore. You also see some pretty disturbing things like people projectile vomiting blood, which is just nasty. I'm happy to say that they didn't include any nudity or sexuality, which is great, but they included pretty much everything else. So family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. The script of this movie to me was hit or miss. Director David Leitch did not try at all to hide his influences of Hobbs and Shaw and Deadpool 2 in this movie. I think I chuckled a couple times and even laughed once, but there was a lot of super fast-paced dialogue and empty lines that were trying to be funny that ended up not being that funny. And I think ultimately the moments that I thought were the funniest were not necessarily the lines, but physical comedy that was on screen. As far as the acting goes, for the most part, everyone's acting performances were great. When you bring in a cast of A-list actors and put them all together, you can either get a collection of really great performances or you can get a bunch of people that are there for a paycheck. I felt it leaned more towards giving actually good performances. The only acting performance that I really wasn't that impressed with was Joey King. But I can't really say much without spoiling something, so I'll just say that I didn't really believe her performance and I wasn't really impressed by it. I'd say the 3 actors you see the most of are Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Brian Tyree Henry. And because they were on screen the most, their performances were awesome. But the issue with a movie like this, with such a vast group of characters, is that it kind of is plagued by the Eternals effect, where there's so many characters in so many different situations that you only get to see a couple of them and you feel kind of gypped with the rest. So all in all, the acting was good, but I think the script was trying too hard to be funny, so acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. With movies like Murder on the Orient Express, a lot of the characters are developed as the film progresses, as you find out more about them, eventually leading you to whodunit. This movie plays out similarly, but in this movie, I think character development suffered greatly. Between the fast-paced action, the fast lines, the quick dialogue, and the sensory overload of all the subplots, a lot of the character development went by the wayside. The most character development you got, I'd say, was with Lemon and Tangerine. Out of all the characters, I really liked Lemon and the character development that happened with that, and pretty much every everybody else took a back seat. Yeah, there are things that make the story go along, but you never feel a real deep connection to any of the characters, including Lemon. Brad Pitt's character Ladybug got a decent amount, but a lot of it was done through long pauses of dialogue that sometimes landed and sometimes didn't. Ladybug has bad luck follow him pretty much everywhere he goes. But then they also try to say that the character of Prince has good luck wherever she goes. And I'm like, huh. That sounds exactly like Domino in Deadpool 2. Except in this movie, I just did not believe it with the character of Prince. And so on top of just not enjoying the character of Prince, I didn't think that that dynamic played out very well towards her character development or towards the plot in general. I get that this is that kind of movie and that character development is going to suffer a little bit, but I think too much of it fell through the cracks for you to really care about any of these characters in depth. So character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. I'll just be straight with you, the CGI in this movie is not great. There were moments where it was decent and there were moments where it was just straight up ugly and bad. It's pretty clear that most of the budget for this movie went to getting the A-list actors and not putting it towards the visuals and CGI. And sometimes that's okay, but in this movie it just didn't do enough. Visuals and CGI, thumbs down. And 6 is rewatchability. This movie is 2 hours and 6 minutes long, and despite the fast-paced nature of it, you definitely feel it. Yeah, there are funny moments here and there, and there's a lot of good actors in it, but movies like this that are a classic whodunit, action, mystery, where there are big reveals at the end of the film, are not that rewatchable. I'd say it's more of an experience than a rewatchable movie, and it's not an experience that I necessarily want to go through again. So rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all those areas considered, I have to give Bullet Train a 6 out of 10. This movie had an excellent cast, a lot of funny cameos, some good humor, and some subtle moments that played well with the plot. But this movie was plagued with terrible character development, a couple unbelievable performances, bad CGI, a lot of blood and gore and profanity, all included in a plot that was underwhelming at best. I wanted more for this movie, especially given the cast, but that's what we got. So with those things in mind, I would not recommend spending your time or money going to see Bullet Train in theaters. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Bullet Train, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.